This is a basic introduction to subtitling. Firstly, what are we talking about? Subtitling is what we all think it is, written translation of spoken language on the screen, more or less. We'll see that people are now playing with that definition. It's usually opposed to dubbing, which is spoken translation of spoken language on the screen. So dubbing is spoken by actors and subtitles are written by translators. Dubbers can also work from translations done by translators, of course. There is a major third option, which is just having a voiceover. This you'll find in Eastern Europe, especially, where the one voice in sort of a monotone voices all the actors in the film, and it's basically very cheap. It's also frustrating if you're trying to follow the English because the people start talking and then the actor comes in with his voice in Polish, is my experience, and you have to guess what the actor finished saying in English. It can be a frustrating experience. There are other things out there these days. Fan subbing, for example, is subtitling done by volunteers. Okay, so we're going from dubbing, which is expensive, subtitling, which is much less expensive. Voiceover is very cheap because you got this one actor, and fan subbing, in principle, is free because it's done by volunteers. Where do these things happen? Well, because of the costs involved, big countries usually prefer dubbing. So Germany, France, and Spain, for example, are countries that dub. Small countries, on the other hand, tend to prefer subtitles. This is Portugal, Belgium, and the Netherlands. Especially if you go to Belgium, for example, you'll find at the bottom of the screen subtitles in French and subtitles in Dutch. Same thing in Finland. You'll see subtitles in Finnish and subtitles in Swedish. And then poorer countries, Eastern Europe, have traditionally preferred the one voice voiceover. And electronic cultures, online cultures, use fan sub communities. What's interesting here, if you look at it, is where jobs are available these days for translators. So for big countries, translators are used to prepare for dubbing, and there is still investment in that because it's basically for television and for cinema, and there are big audiences which enable it to happen. Smaller countries, on the other hand, do prefer subtitling, and you can get jobs, but they are fairly restricted. Why? Because lots of people are now getting their subtitles for free online. So there is a lucrative market developing, firstly in non-traditional outlets, well, basically Netflix, entertainment services, pay-per-view services. Netflix spends quite a lot of money on its subtitles and is interested in innovating with respect to subtitles. And the other area is training videos, high-level training videos, which are sold quite expensively as part of online training programs. And they invest in subtitles because they need high-quality subtitles. So there are moving markets. The most dynamic sector is, of course, the fan sub communities, who are doing lots and lots of experimental stuff. And the voiceover is still done in these countries, basically because people have become used to it. And once you become used to it, you like it. You're used to processing that. Should point out while we're doing this, language scores, language skills of high school students are traditionally much higher in the subtitling countries than certainly France and Spain. Germans work at everything and they're good at everything. But it's very clear that people who are brought up watching television and going to the cinema hearing the original language, especially English and to a lesser extent French, do acquire the language through subtitles. So subtitles have a certain justification as a pedagogical tool or allowing society access to foreign languages, whereas the big countries have had strong nationalist languages and have used subtitling to block the presence of the foreign language. Okay. Certainly in Spain, it was seen as a defense of the Spanish language. So there's a lot of politics and social considerations behind these various alternatives. The rules for subtitles are traditionally quite simple. Okay, 2 lines, usually at the bottom of the screen, and usually centered. Okay, in English, the convention is we have a maximum of 35 characters per line. A character is really a letter, symbol, or space. That's because you just have a limited amount of space at the bottom of the line. You've got 2 lines, you've got a maximum of 70 characters. Okay? This I took from a doctoral thesis in Chinese. You've got 11 to 15 characters per line. But since characters are morphemes and words can be expressed in 2 and 3 or 4 letters, Chinese has a lot more compression, and subtitling into Chinese tends to be relatively easy. In terms of time, then, the subtitle must be there for at least 1 second and no more than 6 seconds. 6 seconds is a long time on the screen. So those are the rules. That's what you have to know. Here, people are applying the rules. You can see there are 2 lines at the bottom of the screen. This is Arnold and somebody else. Another convention is that when 2 people are talking in the one caption, as you have here, the dialogue is indicated by these dashes. Okay, a dash and a space. Sometimes they don't have a space. Here we do have a space. Personally, I like a space. Okay, this says one character says this and the other character says this. If it's only one person speaking in the caption, then you don't need those dashes. Okay, it's obvious who is speaking. Now, that is a convention that has been played around with in many different ways. Here's a lovely little subtitle, the kid's under the water swimming, and where does the subtitle go? Next to the kid's head, because that's what the kid is thinking, just about there. So we can break the convention of having them at the bottom of the screen and centered. Okay. This is from Netflix. Netflix is quite innovative in subtitles. That's okay. Here we've got 2 lines at the bottom. We've got this person talking as he walks. It's not centered, so they're breaking that convention, but that doesn't matter much. Let's just see what happens as these 2 people talk.
System works, and we'll be out of your hair in 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
You see there, we've got 2 people talking, and we've split the screen at the bottom, so the man says 5 minutes, and the girl says, uh-huh. All right? Logical, easy to do. It breaks the traditional convention. Netflix will also put subtitles at the top if something important is happening at the bottom. The most creative rule breaking happens in Japanese subtitles, okay? So here we've got, I'm fine, and the subtitles go around. It's wonderful. And this one here we've got the subtitles coming in and moving the English off the screen. I love it. There's so much you can do these days with a bit of simple technology. And this one here, hold on, what's going to happen? Let's see if we can get it going. Here we go. Hello. All right. Okay. You can have the subtitles go anywhere you like. All right. So people are being very creative with subtitles. It's become a very dynamic form. Let's hear that again. Okay. There you go. All right. Here's some rule breaking that is for expressive reasons. And this actually fits in. If you've done a bit of linguistics with implicatures, Gricean implicatures, you know that people create meaning not by respecting the rules, but also by breaking the rules. And when you break a maxim, an expectation of a conversation for Grice, you create a special kind of meaning called an implicature. So here is somebody breaking the rule of length of subtitle.
That's probably enough about us. Tell us about you.
Me? Okay. I'm a Sagittarius, which probably tells you way more than you need to know.
Yes, and it tells us that you participate in the mass cultural delusion that the sun's apparent position relative to arbitrarily defined constellations at the time of your birth somehow affects your personality.
Participate in the what?
I think what Sheldon's trying.
Okay, so what happened there? The subtitles broke the convention of having 70 characters at the bottom of the screen. Why? Because Sheldon, this character over here in Big Bang Theory, breaks the social convention of having a polite conversation, which, according to Grice, means that your utterances should be neither too long nor too short. He makes it too long. Okay? Therefore, the subtitles break the convention because the character breaks the convention. And this is innocent enough and fun enough as well. Usually for subtitles, though, if we want to respect the conventions, we have to fit in spoken language into written language and put it in a limited space. Now, the problem is that spoken language includes many more things than we have space for. And so you generally have to use a technique called compression, okay? And there are ways to compress utterance. So here we go. Let's see. Wait. I still haven't shown you slide 3. How can you make that shorter? I mean, if there's room for that, you can put it there. But people who read subtitles are generally used to compression and wouldn't expect you to put, for example, the repetition. Wait, I still haven't shown you slide 3. Fits in better, and it saves reading time. You must be aware that when people are processing subtitles, they are also processing the sound that's coming to them, the intonation and the force with which an utterance is expressed, and they're processing the visual information, and they're processing the narrative information. So their mind, their brain at least, is doing a lot of things on a lot of different levels, and we find that people go in and out of subtitles. They will not usually read the subtitles in a linear fashion, simply because they're paying attention to other things. So the shorter the subtitle, the better for that multiple processing. I still haven't shown you slide 3 in the narrative situation, because you can see where people are on the screen. You don't have to say wait. And we could go down. I haven't shown you slide 3. Wait till you see slide 3. Okay, we're doing a slight syntactic compression here. But you can see we've gone from that length down to that length with no real loss of content, given that there are other supports for content on the screen. Another example. You think, well, how can we compress this? It was a very, very long dinner. You've guessed it. Remove the repetition. It was a very long dinner. Fair enough. What else could we do? Let me see. It was a long dinner, okay? Because the person reading the subtitle can hear the actor saying this, probably with an emphasis on the very, and so that intonation will convey the sense of very, the emphatic nature, the intensifier there. What else could we do, though? Well, you could decide to do a complete transformation of it and express it from another perspective. This would be perspective change. We sat there for hours. Now, usually subtitlers will do this quite successfully. They will tend not to do that. Why would you not do that? Number one, it takes you a lot more mental effort to recast the whole sentence like this. Especially if you're doing post-editing, you're going to get something like this, but not anything like that. So you save effort by not adopting perspective change in this case. And number two is people, especially for subtitling from English into other languages, people are using this as a language learning tool. So they are listening to the English and checking in the subtitles to see if they've listened correctly, if they've really grasped what's going on. If you use a massive syntactic transformation like this, it upsets that pedagogical usefulness. You know, they can hear that, they're expecting to see something very similar to what they've just heard. If they see something very different, they think they have made a mistake. They haven't. So bottom line is, if you're subtitling, there are very good reasons for not working too hard. Use compression by all means, but don't use massive transformation. Let's try this one. This is a blue cucumber, right? What could we omit? Let's see. Is this a blue cucumber? Yes, we've made it much shorter. We don't need the question tag at the end. What else could we do though? Is this cucumber blue? We could do that, but you're not really saving anything, and you're using a syntactic conversion, here a transposition, that serves no real purpose. What about this one though? Is this one blue? That's fine. This is using compression. And is it blue is also good. Why? Because on the screen, if it's a cucumber, we can see the cucumber. Okay, so you can use proforms here to support information that people have on other media, in this case visual on the screen. A blue cucumber is also quite okay. Idioms present a problem. Idioms are expressions that are embedded in habitual cultural usage. Okay, so I told Joanne it was like beating a dead horse, and you may not know that expression, to beat a dead horse. Was it to beat a dead horse? Yes. This means that you are trying to do something that is impossible to do, and you're trying too hard. Like the horse won't go because it's dead. You won't learn to, what have I given up? I won't learn Arabic. I've been trying to learn Arabic all my life, and I don't have enough available time. It's really like beating a dead horse. It's not going to work. I have to leave it until I have more time. All right. When I retire, I'll learn Arabic. Okay, here we go. I told Joanne it was futile. What have you done? You've taken the idiom here and you've reduced it to an adjective. Okay, you have taken out the idiomaticity of the discourse and you've made it something simpler and more directly referential. I told her it was futile is also there. Okay, you can, if you like, look around in the target culture for a corresponding idiom. And subtitles, if they have time, they'll do that, or if it occurs to them, they'll do that. It can sometimes upset the language learning process. At the same time, though, it will tell people, if they're following this, hey, you know what? This idiom means this, and we have this other corresponding idiom, and it can give some quite interesting linguistic information. It might deviate a little from the narrative that people are trying to follow, but learning is good wherever it occurs. There are some conventions as well. This is quoted or direct speech. I'm sort of converting quoted into indirect. It should be indirect up there. I'm sorry, that's an error. So I can say, well, and then Yolanda said, I don't know anything about that. Easily becomes, Yolanda didn't know anything, or Yolanda said she didn't know anything, okay? We're going into a reported speech or indirect speech. It's a fairly typical space-saving convention. Or again, Yolanda didn't know, if you like, if you're really stuck for space. She didn't know. Here we go. Remembering that things are on the screen. So if somebody says, let me just put it here on the table next to me. Well, if you can see an image, you know where the table is. Let me put it here. Okay, and you save a whole lot of space, okay? Or I'll put it here.